up, RotoGrinders? 2 hours nonstop NBA DFS conversation, taking y'all straight up to lock, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. We yield to crunch time. I believe it's returning champions all around. Myself and Squirrel, we were here yesterday. We're back. And TastefulTides and Keith, as well as Roth, they held down crunch time yesterday. They were bringing it back as well, coming in around 6:15, 6:20 or so. Plenty of time to answer your questions and knock out tonight's slate. It's just a 5-game slate, kind of a quiet one. Squirrel, welcome. How did yesterday go? Yesterday, too much the Lakers and Atlanta blowout did not work out for me, and too much Detroit nonsense. Who could have seen that coming? Man, I ended up with Evan Fournier, one of my better lineups, and it's just like, come on, man. That's amateur hour. That's a rookie mistake on my part. How did things go for you?
It was pretty good. I late swapped onto Anthony Edwards. So I was in a FanDuel Live Final qualifier. Like the FanDuel Live Final is tomorrow. So they're running the last qualifiers this week. They had 2 qualifiers out there, and I entered one of them, and I won it. If I had entered that lineup in the other one, I would not have won. I would have won nothing. So good call. Wild. Yeah. Same price point. Just good contest selection on my part.
Sure.
And picked up the 6th seat, and the final. What's really interesting, and you said rants are okay. So, so the last qualifier is tonight. The live final is tomorrow. What happens if there's a tie for the live final? Because in the terms and conditions, it says, if there's a tie for a qualifier, and it has always been the case in the past, same sport, same format, run it back the next day. There is no next day before the final itself, which is tomorrow. So if there's a tie for the qualifier tonight, I am really anxious to see what happens.
How many entries are there in the contest
for the qualifier?
Yeah, like for tonight's, like as far as it's not that many people where theoretically it's probably not going to be a tie, but it's only 5 games, so there's less pieces to maneuver with.
It is 67 slots available.
Okay, yeah.
So,
and I know tomorrow. There's another contest on DK that I have a ticket for. What is the 888 is going down as well? So is that for $1 million or like $250,000 million? It's a pretty big tag, whatever it is. But this is just the appetizer, I guess.
I think it's available in the lobby already. It is. It's going to be $250 the first. So I think I've got a couple of tickets to that as well. So that should be a good one too.
Yeah, I think there's some ticket contests that are still out there. Last one available. So maybe we'll find. I got one. Maybe I'll try to get 2. I'm not going to buy in. I'm too stubborn to buy in. I like. We'll see. Maybe if tonight goes really really well, maybe we'll run it back and run it 2 different ways. Do you want to say what's up in the chats? Michael in chat's pointing out. Glad we have the Washington expert. Yeah, that's what I said to you pre-show. I'm like, yeah, Washington, man, it's all yours. And this is your responsibility. This is your team. I know you talked about him in the Hitting the Nuts article earlier today. Premium members happen to check that out. And if you didn't read that and you have premium, why didn't you? And if you don't have premium, there's a way you can get premium. How can you get premium? It is Tuesday, which means it's Tournament Tuesday, which means we're going to drop a link into the live stream chat channel. It has not been dropped just yet, but producer Steve or producer Devin is going to drop a tournament link in there. It's going to be a DraftKings tournament. We're usually keeping it around 30 people or so. It's just a standard contest, $5 to enter. You win $40, $50, whatever it is. First 5 get paid. But in addition to that, just alert us when you win, and you get yourself a week free of RotoGrinders Premium. And that's, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, MMA, everything you can think of, with the exception of NASCAR. NASCAR does its own thing. Now, if you do not win that contest and you want to check out premium, now is as good a time as any, because you can get the 6-month combo subscription, exclusive price, $469.99. That is a savings of $250 now if you happen to buy them individually, month by month by month by month. If you want to commit to 6 months, you get a $250 discount. Now, if you don't want to fully commit, if you don't want to fully dive in, you can also get a 3-day pass. A 3-day pass is $19.99. Also, scores and odds, $10 off. We have that promo. We'll be dropping that in the chat as well. It's in the description, and $10 off. Not just scores and odds. There's another $10 off one that I'm not thinking. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess $10 off your first month of combo. I guess if you want to buy just a month, you can get $10 off. So there's multiple different ways to go with that. What is the poll question here in chat? Producer Steve dropping the poll question. How much money do you enter? This is a good question. No shaming, of course not. How much money do you enter in DFS daily? $0 to $50, 51 to 100, 101 to 250, or 250 plus? I'm kind of curious I'm curious to see. What do you think is going to be the most popular answer here, Squirrel? 0 to 50, 51 to 100, 101 to 250. I think that's going to be the most popular. 101 to 250? Just because it's got the biggest range? I don't know. What's the chalk here?
Yeah. I think maybe 0 to 50. So I think there's just a lot of people, but I'm guessing there's a bunch of like 50, right? A lot of people do like 50 on the nose or 25 on the nose. Like I think there's a lot of people that like maybe pick a single entry contest on a site, and that's just their lineup and their contest that they're doing every night, I think.
Thomas in chat won the FanDuel 222 entry, $2.22 entry with SimLabs last night. How's that for free advertising? Yeah, and I'll mention SimLabs. Sure, why not? It's the expert DFS generation tool from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs, currently available for NBA and PGA. Baseball on layaway. There's going to be baseball SimLabs. In my brain, it feels like that's probably the best sport for SimLabs, but I'm basing that off nothing. Just I think as far as SimLabs, how it like kind of leans into variance and ownership and stuff like that. Now baseball is so highly variant. I feel like that would be the best sport for it. But again, I'm basing that off nothing, just my feel. Just a few clicks to get yourself hundreds of well-built correlated lineups for whatever contest you're playing. Now, if you're not aware, all combo and NBA, PGA subscribers, you actually have access to SimLabs right now. So feel free to check that out. But there you go. Yeah, Thomas taking down the 222. Congratulations to you. Let's see. Currently, we only have 30 early votes, but yeah, 63% here, Squirrel, $0 to $50. And yeah, I guess that makes more. We're our own little bubble, and you're in a stratosphere I'm not even close to. you're a 1%er.
I'll click on the 250 plus.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, it's a secret ballot, but I think we kind of know which one. We got to know which one you're clicking on. All right, we got to know which wizards to click on tonight, if any. I guess we kind of sort of have to click on some, right? Because they decided that a lot of them are not playing basketball tonight. Koulibaly is out for the season. He's got a wrist that he's done so. Kyle Kuzma is last man standing if he's even playing. He's currently questionable with the shoulder. Denny Avdia is out. Tyus Jones is out. Shamet is out. Uma Ruby is out. Bagley is out. Tough matchup versus Houston, but there is some value out there. If Kuzma doesn't go, I think there's nobody above like 6K that's a wizard. Maybe I'm rounding up. I was looking at the salaries of guys if Kuzma doesn't play. But you might get a bunch of guys that play 28 minutes, which would be super annoying as well, but we'll talk about it. Other key injuries in the slate. Well, one of the tricky things in the slate, right? There's 5 games. There's 10 teams playing. Only one of those 10 teams is playing either on the back end or the front end of a back-to-back. Everybody else is on an island game. But guess which team is playing on the back end of a back-to-back? It's the team that's playing the latest and the team that has the most injury news up in the air. Of course. Of course, that's what's going on. Naz Reid was an incredible play last night, an incredible pivot last night. Oh, yeah, he was looking spectacular. I think he had 17 relay points in the bucket the first half. And I guess they said he had a head, but they didn't say it was a concussion. And if it was a concussion, I think he'd have to not play today. So I think it's still kind of up in the air if it was a concussion. So that's why he's still currently questionable now. But all the tilt if you had Reid last night. He was on one of my better lineups too, and this is what are you going to do? That's just how that goes. And Anthony Edwards, he plays through everything. He's got a finger. He's questionable. Did you see? We got it. Did you see the dunk last night? Yeah, they see the dunk last night, right?
Was it a dunk? That's the question. No, I don't want to be one of the dunk police, but no. It was an amazing play.
Maybe producer Steve can pull it up and show the people. I'm sure everybody's seen it at this point, but it is spectacular. And I think he hurt John Collins in the process of his. I thought it was maybe it was his nether regions that he got that high, but I think it was an arm. I think it was his arm clearing out the way that hurt Collins. And there were so many good photos that came out of it. Like the one, there's the still shot of him dunking, but there's the other one where Collins is on the ground, almost shamed and embarrassed. Not that you should be. Yeah.
After the game, a kid, in the stands, like Anthony Edwards is running off the court and he's signing things here and there. He tosses his wristband into the crowd to a kid, and a kid asks for his jersey, and Anthony Edwards says, "I got to go give it to Collins."
Yeah, which is, I mean, I don't know what was a better jersey swap, that one or the Grady Dick Anthony Black jersey swap that we saw a couple days ago. Here it is, producer Steve on top of it. Yeah, it wasn't. He kind of threw it down there at the end. It's not. Is it a dunk? Yeah, I'm gonna call it a dunk. I'm gonna round up and call it. Come on, it's a dunk. One of the best in-game dunks we saw. And then in the chat, they're asking about it. They're talking about it. Jalen Johnson also had a spectacular one. Shooter Jenkins was talking about it. And on any other night, that's what we were talking about. But Ant definitely one up them. Yeah, it was a throwdown. Maybe that's a new poll question for the people. Was it a dunk or was it not a dunk? There's some passionate takes there in the chat, but I assume he plays, but you never really know. I think it's their third game in 4 nights, back-to-back travel. We'll see. Stay tuned as far as that one, but who knows? And it's wait, was this a travel game? Where did Minnesota play last night? Were they home or no? I'm forgetting now.
In Utah?
I think they were home. In my head, I was thinking they're traveling to Denver. I don't know why. And I was thinking like tough place to travel to back-to-back, but Denver's coming to them. It's also like you could argue it's an important game in the standings too. But the other thing is like Minnesota does not play for like 3 more days. So if they want to give their guys a rest, they can. But we'll see. Do you have any sort of read on that? Because, certainly Nas could become a spectacular play if he's in and Gobert is out. If Nas and Gobert and Edwards are all out, like, all of a sudden, like and Anderson would be interesting. And when will we get this news? I don't know. I think there's a decent chance we don't get it till after 7:00.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of the biggest decision points in the slate. Is that kind of the way you see it as well?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. And actually, I kind of agreed that, I was like trying to figure out the Nas Reed injury because like head injury is like oddly specific and also doesn't like tell us the full story because like I don't think he was like bleeding or anything from the head. But I do think it was like he got hit in the head. And so not starting the second half then makes me think he was at least evaluated for concussion. And if they haven't come out with anything saying like, oh yeah, he's cleared like concussion protocol or whatever, then I think it's very unlikely that he plays tonight if it is a concussion. They could also just be lazy with the news reporting. So I don't know the local beat reporter in Minnesota. So I think of the 3, I think Nasri is probably least likely to play. It does also seem like Anthony Edwards gets hit with questionable tags a lot and plays. So like my guess is Anthony Edwards plays, Nasri doesn't. Rudy Gobert, I think, was questionable yesterday and didn't end up playing. And so it makes me suspicious maybe they thought he would be more useful against Jokic tonight. That's, I think it's a 50-50 thing. But my guess, absolute guess, is that Anthony Edwards plays, Rudy Gobert plays, Naz Reid is out. But I would have like some contingency plans for your lineups that you care about, whatever the case may be if you're using any of those players.
Western Conference standings, OKC currently 47-20. Minnesota 47-21. Denver 47-21. It's a really meaningful game. Both these teams are going to want it. Like they want to win every game, but this game matters more than like, a Tuesday night in Toronto or something like that. And if these guys do go, I think we might see like a little bit extended minutes, right? I could see like, instead of 36, 37, maybe 38, 40, something like that, 39. But that's just sort of my thought. You really can't really factor that in as far as projections, but just the way the game's going to go, I think they really want to win it. And also Minnesota, again, they're off until I believe Saturday. Maybe it's Friday. They're off for a while after this, a while in terms of NBA. So I'm trying to get to pieces of that game. And of course, this is a Luka slate, and we have the money for Luka because we have all the salary in the world. And some cheapies like Champagne on Washington. We'll be talking about him soon enough. Like Dylan Brooks is never really a fun cheap roster, but he's popping in some stuff. And your boy Jordan Poole, especially if Kuzma doesn't go. Not that he's cheap, but he's one of the guys that's hitting many optimals. Anything else we should say as far as the slate overview before we fully dive in? It's again the main Trey Man's ill, he's questionable. That one matters, I guess, to some degree. DFS as an ankle, he's questionable. I suppose there's incremental, bumps that will go around, but I think it's Minnesota is really what's dictating the slate, and we probably won't know. Well, we might, but probably won't know that until 7:30. Who knows? We'll see. Oh, in Washington, I'm sorry, yeah, Kuzma for Washington. Which do you have a lean on that one? Because I guess we'll know, but for the sake of the conversation, where are you at on it?
It's hard to know. I mean, I haven't really been sweating it because, I think I agree we'll know before lock. I would not be surprised if he sits. I think Washington is in full evaluation mode. We kind of talked about it yesterday that this rotating injury stuff where Rashawn Holmes is in and now Amaruri's out or whatever. They're trying to get different looks at different guys. Kyle, there's no real reason for Kyle Kuzma to play. He can play if he wants to. It would not surprise me if that is literally the conversation. Is somebody goes up to Kyle Kuzma as he's getting dressed or warming up, hey, do you want to play tonight, Kyle? And he goes, nah, I'm good. Of course. Yeah.
I think he wants to play.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So he could end up playing, or they might just tell him, look, we want to get a look at some guys. You okay sitting this one out? He goes, oh, sure. Seems like an easygoing guy. I would maybe lean towards maybe he's out and they just want to evaluate guys. It occurs to me they might want to be jacking up Jordan Poole's numbers to make this first season look not so bad. Maybe build his confidence if you want to put a good spin on it. Build his trade value if you want to put a little bit of a negative spin on it. They might be trying to get Jordan Poole running the show a little bit, which is an interesting thing for our DFS lineups. But I think we should know for sure before lock.
What GM would fall for that? It's oh man, Jordan Poole really closed out the season strong. I get it. I like that angle you're working. That makes sense. But well, and I'm just trying to think who he would get traded for. You got to take our junk too. If we're taking Jordan Poole off your hands. I'm just curious how that would work out, what they would get back. There's probably some interesting trades that might be thrown out there, but have you considered this as a Washington fan? I assume you'd be happy to get rid of him at this point.
Yeah, I think it's not a necessity, though. It's not because the Wizards have this history, another rant, this history of terrible contracts as soon as they get a competitive team. From Juwan Howard when they had Chris Webber, Gilbert Arenas, was loaded down with a bunch of bad contracts. Then Gilbert Arenas himself became the bad contract. With John Wall, you had Jan Mahimi and Jason Smith and these ridiculous signings. And it was if they hadn't used the salary cap on that and they just used it to acquire first round picks or anything, they would have had an actual competitive team in my lifetime. This time, Jordan Poole is overpaid, but it's not it's getting in the way of anything. There's a salary floor too. So they got to hit that, and somebody's got to dribble the ball up the court and take short shots. So, he's a great tank commander. So,
and you know what? At least he's entertaining. And what is he doing? They would be more boring and terrible still. So at least he's it's comical. You laugh sometimes with Jordan Poole if that's got any value to it.
He's a poor man's Nick Young.
By the way, the contest did drop in the live stream chat channel, rotogrinders.com/Discord. The live stream chat channel, people already starting to sign up there. If you go ahead, if you want to get yourself a week free of RG Premium, that is where you go. Win this contest, you get just $5 to jump in. We're not trying to make it a crazy price point. Basically, we just want people to, somebody to win premium and just have a little fun. You want to win the tournament for sure, but you want the money. Today. Oh, is it free? Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Today's contest is free. There you go. All right. Even now, why would you not play? If you're playing 7 contests or 10 contests, whatever you're entering, just click on it and just throw it in there. There's no downside. So this should theoretically fill up pretty quickly. Shooter Jenkins says Jordan Poole is the guard, the JaVale version of guard version of JaVale McGee, which has Poole ever been on? Oh God, what's Shaqtin' a Fool? I'm assuming he's got to be a Shaqtin' a Fool all-star, right?
Did you see the thing where he's rolling the ball up the court? Like he didn't think he like wasn't at the time in the game where the clock stops after a made shot or whatever. So he was rolling the ball up the court and he was like yelling at the ref because the clock was running. And everybody else in the court is just looking at him like, yeah, it's supposed to be running. There's so many. Yeah, if that wasn't on track in the pool, nothing is.
All right. Slate overview: 2 games at 7:00, 1 game 7:30, 1 game 8:00, 1 game 9:00. That is on NBA TV, which is sort of pseudo national TV. I think we get most of the stars. Edwards, like almost for sure, is going to play in that game. There's a chance Gobert doesn't go. I'm trying to. What was that like? Remember many years ago where Joker was like talking smack to Gobert, and like Gobert's like, I got him, and Joker's like, man, I got like 50. Like he was like, he's like, yeah, you're not covering anything. I'm crushing you out here. I can't remember the exact line, but it's one of those classic lines. So yeah, I know Gobert is going to be the defensive player of the year, and we'll get to it. But like, whatever. Yeah, you could play Joker against anybody. Gobert is not going to scare me away either. Let's talk about the very first game. It is we've got a little warm up here with the Hornets and the Magic. 2 games at 7. We'll talk about the Rockets and the Wiz in a second. A lot of ugly games, right? This is one of them. 202.5 is the total. The Hornets have a 94.75. You want to get all technical, less than 95 as far as their team total. They're 13-point dogs here against Orlando. Really, really paltry number. So it's low and it's not tight. It's not a very appealing game, but there is only 5 games in the slate. The Magic are not fun to roster as is, and they are fully healthy. I know the matchup against Charlotte is appealing, but individually their pieces are not great. I know Banchero, sure, but you got to fully pay for him. As far as Charlotte, McGowan's is out. All the other guys that are never coming back are still out. Trey Mann is questionable. If he doesn't go, Grant Williams would probably benefit. Mitchich would benefit. I think we have an if-then set up for. We can talk about that in a second. But is this the worst game? This is the worst game of the slate, right? I think it is.
Yeah, by far. Charlotte's got like one of the lowest implied point totals I can remember seeing. I was in line of HQ. Yeah, it's actually decreased now to 94.75. And Orlando's like not that. I mean, I guess there's the risk of a blowout. Like Orlando's not that much better than Charlotte, just because like they're priced appropriately. So like Charlotte is priced appropriately and not expected to score any points. Orlando's priced appropriately. They've got a reasonable implied point total. Like there's no reason to get there. Like there's so many other options on the slate. If there's something from this game that I'm going to be playing, it's going to end up being Jonathan Isaac, and it's going to be a mistake. I can tell you right now. I'm going to forget to manually lower his projection, even though he only plays 20 minutes a game. And he has a fine median score for playing 20 minutes a game, and with his positionality, then at small forward, he tends to show up in lineups. It's probably a mistake. He's not going to score more than 25 fantasy points. It's hard to win a tournament with the 25 fantasy points at his salary. So. I'm going to be playing more of this game than I like, and I'm probably only going to be playing Jonathan Isaac.
Ownership reflects that, by the way, as far as how uneventful this game looks. Just a 5-gamer. The most popular guy currently on DK is Cole Anthony, and he's going to play 20 to 23 minutes, something like that, which is not terribly appealing. 12% he's coming at. Mitchich is coming at 11%. I should mention our if man is out, Mitchich would be the best play. But even still, no DK, no positive DK values, no positive FanDuel values. Even if we lose Man, now Mitchich would be the best play. He's kind of a neutral play. I shouldn't say he's not a bad play. He's coming in the yellow territory as opposed to red. He's the only guy in the yellow. Everybody else is in the red. So our projection will be about 29 DK points as a median score, which is fine. Perfectly fine. Certainly playable. But it's not, jumping off the page like, he was cheaper. And somebody in chat mentioned he had a good game against Orlando in the past, which is fine. But, small samples, yada, yada. And he's playable, but I'm not getting super excited about it in this game as a whole. Like you said, it's got a stench to it. Franz Wagner, I think, has got a pretty fair price. Banchero, if I can get to him, sure. You mentioned Isaac. He's 4-1 on FanDuel. On DK, you get that power forward eligibility, so you don't have to lock in your center. Do you have any difference as far as FanDuel? I know you kind of spoke to that, but Mitchell is almost 6K over there, 5'9". If we lose man, are we interested in Mitchell? I assume it's a little bit more interesting, but doesn't sound like you're terribly thrilled about this game.
He's a little bit more interesting. I'd still rather maybe hold off for Mike Conley without there's a chance that Anthony Edwards sits, right? Third game in 4 nights. There's I think it's a reach to play Mike Conley, but I'd probably rather wait and see. In that price range at point guard. I mean, Mr. would be okay, right? Yeah, if Trey Man sits. I just maybe want to wait and see if there's a little bit more upside later in the night. Even we'll get Dennis Smith is a cheap point guard if Dorian Finney-Smith sits, because that's actually a kind of a sleeper injury situation, because I believe Dorian Finney-Smith is still questionable. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'd rather just wait. And then there's always a possibility, especially as we get later into the season, of injury news coming out of nowhere after lock as well. So I'm still not terribly excited, even if Trey Man sits, of locking up one of my point guard spots or my point guard spot with Misic if if the team's expected to score under 95 points.
By the way, the contest is about 2/3 of the way full. So if you want to jump in there, it's free. It's a free contest, but just finish first. You get yourself a week free of RG Premium. It's in the Discord channel, rotogrinders.com/Discord, in the live stream chat channel. It says, set up by Sosa, producer Steve. Very, very easy to find. The Magic, an hour and a half before the game. Imagine this, Squirrel. An hour and a half before the game starts, they gave us starting lineup. And this is spoiling us.
Not that hard. Yeah.
It really isn't that hard.
Other teams can do it.
The Cincinnati Reds are going to give us their starting lineup 3 days in advance, probably for opening day. Maybe not, actually. They have several guys that are injured right now. Kuzma's officially out. There we go. That's
sure?
Boy. Yeah, just dropped right now. Just perfect timing. All right. That's our next game. Should we give I imagine they're probably prepared for this when it comes to projections, and it shouldn't be it's probably going to switch over pretty quickly. The projection team, they were on top of this. They had that as an if then, but we are talking about your Wizards today. We're talking about your Wizards a lot today. 228 is the total at home versus Houston. Not a great matchup, but going to be down to, let's see, 10 guys, I think, if I'm counting correctly. 10-point dogs at home versus Houston. As far as the Rockets, nothing new here. Şengün probably done for the year. We'll see. Tari Eason done for the year. Cam Whitmore is still out. Freddie looks good. FEV, that is. Jalen Green looks good. Amen Thompson, especially on DK, on FanDuel, kind of a reach. Looks spectacular. Jabari Smith probably starting the 5. I think Rashawn Holmes is going to look great. We'll talk about that in a second. Jock Landale, if you want to tell blowout stories, if you want to go the blowout angle, I think Landale's kind of sort of someone interesting for the Rockets. But for Washington, again, a reminder, if you didn't catch it at the beginning of the show, Coulibaly done for the year. I don't know when Bagley's coming back. They just he's been gone for 6, 7, 8 games, something like that. Omar Ruri's done or not playing tonight. No Shamet, no Tyus Jones, no Avdia, no Kuzma. I think that is 4/5 of their starting lineup, basically. So, yeah, Jordan Poole season, Jordan Poole chalk season. What can go wrong? How much whiz is too much whiz? I think we're probably going to get 4 guys in projections. And the other thing is, before I turn it over to you, I kind of referenced before, salaries. Oh, okay, so Jordan Poole is 6'6", but beyond that, right? I have DK pulled up. Champagne 4'2", Kispert 5'5", Holmes 4'7", Baldwin 4K, Butler 3'7", Johnny Davis 3'6", Gill 3'3". Jules Bernard and Tristan Vukcevic. I guess those guys are playing basketball tonight, possibly. Okay, they're in the 3s.
I'm actually interested in before I forget to mention, Tristan Vukcevic is a second-round pick they had from a couple years ago. Literally just got arrived with the team from Serbia, I think. He's one of those things where that season just ended last week, so they bought him out of the rest of his contract or whatever. So he's actually a guy. He played for the summer league team and looked pretty decent. He's a center. but like I think not like Nikola Vucevic, like he's more of a like kind of a 3 and like a stretch center, I guess. Not like a big bulky center. Is at least the impression I got from summer league. But it would not shock me if he's getting minutes either tonight or at some point before the end of the season. It might not be his night tonight, but like if you really want like I assume minimum price center for a super large field contest, like if he's active, my favorite guy that might not play, but could make an impact if he does play. Wouldn't shock me if he gets a start before the end of the season.
You said,
so
oh, go ahead. Sorry, continue.
No, it's just, I mean, it's that time of the year. Kuzma's out, so we're playing a bunch of Wizards. We're already playing a bunch of Rockets. It should be an interesting night for tournaments.
Yeah, and the other part of it again is this is a 7:00 game, and you might be tying up a lot of players at 7:00, and stuff might open up with Minnesota later on that you don't know. Now I'm rerunning our stuff. The projection team all over it. They're on top of things. So I'm seeing what my optimals look like now with the new information with Kuzma getting kicked out. And I have caps on stuff, but I would imagine like Poole's probably hitting every single cap on both FanDuel and on DK, which is uncomfortable to me. Is that just me? That's everybody, right? That's you and everybody else. It's uncomfortable. Jordan Poole chalk, or maybe you like it. You want to embrace it.
Yeah, I think Poole's in the Squirrels Nuts article, but he's actually looked pretty good since the All-Star break. So I think he's shooting 45%, like 38 from 3 since the All-Star break. Like it was 30% before the All-Star break. I think 40% from the field overall before the All-Star break. They are really just handing the reins over to Jordan Poole at this point in the season, saying like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. Take all the shots, roll the ball up the court. We don't care. And we're going to give you a bunch of G League guys to play with. Just make the best of it. Like try to make people's numbers look good. Like you said, like does any GM fall for that? I've seen some terrible trades in my time following the NBA. Yeah, you can absolutely get some of these guys to fall for anything. And like it wouldn't surprise me if that's an actual strategic thing that the Wizards do. We're just gonna we're not playing defense. We're gonna have a bunch of guys with decent scoring averages, and that's even about like part of the rotating injuries, right? Like if a guy's playing in the game, they want him to play 30 minutes and have a bunch of guys at the end of the season that average 15 points per game or whatever. I'm going to be playing a good amount of Jordan Poole tonight.
That's almost like too clever though for Washington. Like I think it's a great theory. I like the idea. Like it makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if that organization's smart enough to think of it. By the way,
they got new management last year.
That's a good point. That's fair. So in chat, they just pointed this out, and I did a refresh. Rad Dad Fanny Pack was saying, I'm seeing 9 guys available. This Vucevic guy has disappeared from our players, from our rosters. I don't know if that means he's not available or if we've seen something in him officially being out. But like you said, he just got over here. So maybe there's some travel issues or maybe he's got to take a physical. I have no idea what's going on, but he did just disappear. That doesn't mean he's not going to pop back in. But it looks like we're down to 9 Wizards. Poole, Champagnie, Kispert, Baldwin Jr., Holmes, Butler, Davis, Gill, and Bernard off the bench. There's only 9, and they're cheap. Then they're facing a good defensive team in Houston. They might just score 90 points. That's one way it can go poorly. So I did just run a brand new optimals on DK and on FanDuel. First optimal has 5 Wizards in it. 5 Wizards in the first one, 4 in the second one, 5 in the third. I have caps on players, no more than 68%. Champagnie, I got 68%. Poole, I got 68%. Baldwin, I got 67%. And whatever a Jules Bernard is, I got 45% of that. They are the 4 most popular players hitting my lineups. Amen Thompson. And then with all that salary savings, guess who you get? You get Luka, of course. That's what everybody else is going to do too. Is that like the clear and obvious way to build tonight?
I think so, but I like getting a little bit different. And you kind of referenced it, right? Like you're tying up a bunch of spots with this game. I mean, my 150 lineup set, I will have a bunch of stacks of this game, right? But I mean, there's only so many lineups you can have of just one player from another game, And so I will probably try to have a bunch of lineups that have a handful of spots left over, especially for that Minnesota-Denver game. But like I also like Wemby as well. So yeah, and I don't mind like maybe getting a little bit different and not playing Luka, right? So playing this lineup, and I kind of wrote about it in the Squirrels Nuts, but I think Jokic is a really interesting play. I think Wembanyama is an interesting play. Maybe if you end up without Luka and Luka has kind of a mild game, really what you're dependent on is picking the right pieces from this Washington-Houston game, and then just picking the right pieces from the rest of the games.
Is there any reason to run court IQ stuff here for Washington, or is there too many guys out and we're going to get nothing from it?
What I think is probably more useful is looking up these guys' G League stats.
Yeah, I was looking at their rates and stuff like that, but yeah, I have not followed. Well, Johnny Davis has been on the team the whole year, I believe, just not really playing much. Jules Bernard, right? Or has he been the team? Has he been in the G League?
I think Johnny Davis has seen a good amount of G League time, which is not that common for a first round near lottery pick. But
they really want him to be a thing. They would love him to happen, but it doesn't seem like it's happening. But they would. I think he's like one of the worst shooters in the league. Like his like general, just like his shot percentages, and just he's a terrible shooter, which I don't like that. As a general thought.
So Johnny Davis in his 6 G League games this year, 36% from the field in the G League.
That seems bad. Yeah. that seems not good. By the way, in chat, do appreciate this. Steve in chat. Steve's telling us the Wiz beat writer said Vuk unavailable tonight, but he's close. So there you go. And I imagine that our projection team or somebody was on top of that and must have read that, and that's why we're down to 9. Projection wise, as far as the minutes, we'll spend a fair bit of time in this game just because it really matters a lot. Champagny, we're given 34 minutes. Kisper, 34. Poole, 33. Baldwin, 32. Holmes, 26. I think that could be a little higher. I think you catch him on the right night because Kuzma's the guy that plays a bunch of center, right? Is he going to chop that with Anthony Gill? Who else could play the 5 for them? Look how small they are tonight. They're small as is. They're even smaller without Kuzma. Now you're facing Houston, not a very tall team, unless Landau's out there.
Yeah, it's a shame that Şengün is hurt.
Yeah.
He would have gone berserk. I don't know who's playing center. Patrick Baldwin played some center, I think, earlier this year. I think there was moments when I think it was Gafford was out, and whoever was backing up Gafford was out as well. And then Gafford got hurt, and it was Patrick Baldwin was the guy that they were starting basically as a center. And I feel like he is tall, just very thin and tall.
Okay. Yeah, let's see if we can get a height and weight on Patrick Baldwin. We're the only ones right now in the world currently Googling Patrick Baldwin height, weight. Maybe, not sure. Let's see. He's 6'9", which I guess is pretty big for this game. All right. So maybe he'll play some 5. I just think, and Rashawn Holmes is like a good fantasy point per minute player too. I think he's like one of my favorite guys. If we're only projecting him for 26 minutes or so, he's also a guy who can put up 30, 35 fantasy points in 26 minutes. We're giving him like 23 fantasy points. And the point I'm making is like, it seems like he's one of the less popular starters for Washington. And if that's the case, I would probably go over on him intentionally. Do you have a read on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm concerned that he might end up being limited by foul trouble, not minutes, right? Like they might want to play him as much as they want, but he just picks up 6 fouls fairly quickly. Houston also without their center. What if Houston's just playing a bunch of Jabari Smith? Then does Washington need to play center, right? Maybe they are playing Patrick Baldwin there. It'll be interesting to see. I am actually kind of interested in Jock Landale. He was somebody I wrote up in the Squirrels Nuts. Like he's been seeing pretty good minutes. And with this situation, even with Rashawn Holmes out, he saw like 26, 27 minutes against the Wizards last week. I would have to think that that's not going to go down if Rashawn Holmes is in this time. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Holmes' minutes are actually could be anywhere. They might just play him until he fouls out. They might just want to take a look at some of the other guys and go small. So we'll see.
Yeah, like that's a good point. When Washington is theoretically good, whenever that's going to be, like I promise you, Rashawn Holmes is not going to be in that team unless he's like the coach or something. That's an interesting angle to take on that. You mentioned Landau on the other side. We'll talk about Houston a little more in depth in a second. But do you think that a rule, one of Landau or Smith, because those guys will mostly be playing the 5. We have some crossover for them. We got 34 minutes for Smith and 20 for Landau. So it was 6 minutes of crossover. But mostly Landau is kind of like the blowout angle, the backup center angle. And I'm sure, I guess both can get there. But I'm just sort of thinking about rules if you're running 150. Is that something you've considered?
Yeah, absolutely. Like backup center is one of the best places to use a rule like that. And it is absolutely possible they both get there, but really what you're looking for is the upside, and the upside might happen if there's foul trouble, if there's an injury, and suddenly they need to be playing Jock Landale 30 something minutes when they weren't expecting to. So yeah, I think that kind of rule makes sense in this situation.
Can you power rank your top 3, top 4, top 5 Wizards as deep as you want to go with it?
Yeah, I think Jordan Poole is number 1. I think he's the one most likely to put up a real outlier score. And he's not that expensive. I think number 2 is probably Champagny. Champagny. He's going to be dribbling the ball a lot. He put up good numbers in the time that he's had with the Wizards. So I think he's my number 2, and he's a super cheap and small forward eligible. Number 3 now with Kuzma out is probably Corey Kispert. He is another guy that can just get hot from 3. He's more of a veteran, but like a younger veteran. They're going to let him take his shots. So it's probably Poole, then Champagny, then Kispert. After that, I'm thinking it's probably like Jared Butler, but we got to see the starting lineup. I think Jared Butler is a guy that's done pretty well in the G League. The team, he's like a primary guy. They want to see, what do we have here? So probably Jared Butler, but it might depend on the starting lineup. And then, I think Rashawn Holmes is absolutely in play. He's probably my 5th favorite Wizard.
Butler, this is the guy that played for the Jazz a couple years ago. Is the same guy?
Yep. Yeah. So he's like potentially a real NBA player that's still young, that they acquired for almost nothing. So if he can be good, they want to give him the opportunity to be good.
All right. And max amount of Wizards you're willing to play in a lineup is what? Is it 4?
There is no limit.
So you're okay with, if you're playing 5, and I'm looking at, let's see, I'm looking at lineups that have 5. Without giving away the full lineup, it's of course, well, let's see, that's 4. I'm seeing 4. Is it down to 4 now? Maybe I got to scroll back up. I ran some more stuff. But yeah, you're going to be getting Luka or Joker, right? I don't think can you get them both? Can you get Luka, Joker, and 5 Wizards? That's probably something you can do if you want to do that, I think. But yeah, you'll allow 5. And on FanDuel, you know what it is? I'm looking at FanDuel Optimals, and of course, they're not giving me 5 because you can't have 5. You can have 4. And FanDuel, it's like they're all pumping out 4 Wizards. Poole, Baldwin, Champagne, all coming in between. They're all hitting my cap at 74%. And then Bernard at 61, Butler at 35. See, this is kind of the point I was making. Kispert, I love the Kispert call because he's been with the team and getting real minutes all year long. And he's the vet by default on the court. And if he's going to be the 5th most popular Wizard, sure. He's also one of the first ones that's benched. This game gets ugly. That's just how that goes. And Rashawn Holmes at 2% on FanDuel. Just want to point that out. He's not getting played at all on FanDuel. He is 5'4" over there. It's a little bit more expensive, but he used to. I don't know what his stock ability is these days. But once upon a time, he was a really good block guy back in the day for Philly. Okay. Let me pull up the DK stuff. I mean, you know what it is? It's a Washington Houston stack with Luka.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just beautiful, right? I mean, everybody else sees that too.
I should probably address my least favorite Wizards.
Yes, I should ask that too.
Yeah. My least favorite by far is probably Johnny Davis. Just what is he? 0.5 DraftKings points per minute on the season. He had some games at the end of last season where he put up useful fantasy scores. I would rather bet against it than bet for it. I guess anything is possible. But again, he shot 36% in the G League. He's putting up half a DraftKings point per minute. If they give him 36 minutes at his average, he's probably still not putting up a useful score for him. Anthony Gill is probably my second least favorite Wizard. He's actually put up about 0.94 DK points per minute this season. I just think he's more of a defensive guy than a guy who's going to put up big numbers on offense. I guess, and again, anything is possible, but probably, Johnny Davis and Anthony Gill, probably the two Wizards I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah, Michael's saying Davis, he has to lock into some assists and some boards. Mitchell saying Davis, one of the worst lottery picks of all time. That's probably, you got to do some deep digging on that, but I wouldn't say that's wrong. It's probably not wrong. It's pretty bad. Who was the guy from Minnesota that was taken right before Steph? Remember Minnesota picked 2 point guards?
Johnny Flynn?
Flynn, there you go, from like Syracuse or something like that. Did he get hurt or was he terrible? I don't remember.
He was just bad.
Yeah. And I think Minnesota picked 2 point guards too. Like they went like 5 and 6 or 4 and 5, and none of which were named Steph Curry. Yeah.
I think Minnesota got one of those picks from the Wizard.
Really?
Yeah. For it's like Mike Miller and Randy Foye.
Wow. Those are some names. Wow.
Yeah.
Mike Miller. Shout out to NBA champion Mike Miller with the Miami Heat and Randy Foye. Did not expect we would hear that name. Oh, Rubio was the other one. Yeah. Rubio was a legit player, right? I guess was Rubio the other one? That's what Steve's saying. That sounds right. I think that sounds right. But Flynn is the one I remember. All right. Let's talk about Houston. How do we feel with the Rockets? Because the matchup here against Washington obviously pretty good. They are as healthy as they've been in a while. Like nothing new. Like their prices are starting to stabilize. Amen Thompson, you're getting that thing where on FanDuel he's too expensive. On DK he looks pretty good. Dylan Brooks is not my favorite player to get as far as ownership, but now his ownership's going to have to come down because Washington stuff is opening up, so he gets pushed down. Freddie looks great. Jalen looks great. Jabari looks great. How are you prioritizing the Rockets? I mean, really, like a 7, like a 3-4, and then just like an a la carte piece. 3 Rockets, 4 Wizards, and then Luka or something of the sort. Kyrie, Joker seems like a fun lineup to make. How do you feel about Houston tonight?
So I think the guy that I'm primarily interested in is Jalen Green. Wrote it up in the article, but like his numbers without Şengün on the court this season are actually eye-popping. Like you expect to see an increase. Like no, he's the biggest fantasy producer without Alperen Şengün on the court this season for the Rockets. So you would think it's maybe Fred VanVleet. It's not. It's Jalen Green. Jalen Green is still cheaper. I don't know that he should be than Fred VanVleet. So he's my favorite guy to get to. You alluded to it, but the big price difference on Amen Thompson makes him almost unplayable on FanDuel, but a very key value piece on DraftKings. I don't mind leaning into that. I play about the same amount on both sites. So yeah, I'll be playing a bunch of Amen Thompson on DraftKings. If he has a great game, I maybe have a good DraftKings day. If he has a bad game, I maybe have a good FanDuel day. It kind of ends up the same for me. And then Jabari Smith is the guy on FanDuel I'm getting instead of Amen Thompson. Jabari Smith's actually not been playing that well recently, and he has not actually seen a boost with Şengün off the court, which I find surprising. But that's kept his price in check, and he did put up 41 FanDuel points last game. That was his best. That was against Cleveland, his best game in a while. But he's capable of having good games, so 6,800 on FanDuel, I'll be rolling him out. I will probably try to be about even with the field on Fred VanVleet. I just don't have a good take there. He doesn't get taken off the court very often, but this is a situation where it might happen. And I wouldn't be under the field on Dylan Brooks. He's just not an offensive minded player. So yeah, I don't know. He's not going to hit more shots, I think, just because Şengün's off the court. Maybe he'll hit incrementally more because they're playing the Wizards. But
you might get 5 stocks though, whatever ball handling is going on the Washington side. I can see him taking advantage of that.
That's true. Jordan Poole is going to roll the ball up the court, and Dylan Brooks is going to take it. So that is a possibility. I might have to reevaluate that take. But I also like being over the field on Jock Landale. He's super cheap and should see full minutes against a bad rebounding team.
Yeah, question in chat, by the way, DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith is officially in. Being told in chat that Man is in. I have not seen that note, but
I saw that.
That's okay. I must have missed it, I suppose.
It was right before the Kuzma news.
That what it is? That's probably either did I know this and just forget it? It doesn't matter. Shooter Jenkins is asking in chat, Jock Landale or Jonathan Isaac. I think Landale's has got a much higher ceiling than Isaac.
Yeah, I agree.
Isaac can only play like 20, 21 minutes, 22 minutes, right? And Landale, if this game's really goofy, he could smash the fourth quarter. Unless they dust off Boban, which I think they haven't done that like him forever. So I wouldn't think that would happen. But Landale against like Anthony Gill, if this game gets ugly, seems like well, who are the 5 Wizards that mop up? Let's do that. Because again, they're only down to 9. Davis, Bernard, probably Gill, probably Butler. Which starter? Baldwin or Champagny? It's one of those two. Which starter is like going to start and play and mop up no matter what?
I think it's impossible to know. I'd lean towards Champagny. I don't know. There's no knowable answer.
But it's not Holmes, and it's not Kispert, and it's not Poole. We can say that, I think.
Yeah, you're most likely right. I mean, so just looking like their last game against Boston was a huge blowout. So it was, Bernard, Anthony Gill, Johnny Davis, Baldwin, and Champagny.
All right. A couple other questions. And we're spending a lot of time in this game because this game really, really seems to matter. And the other part of it, again, is like it's possible you could be locked in for like, basically your entire lineup in this game. And goofiness can happen with Minnesota, which, I'm going to take stands both ways and just kind of see. Have one live lineup if Minnesota just blows up in our face, because I think there's a really good chance we don't get that news till like 7:30. I do think that really strongly we're just going to play. I'm not sure about Naz. And Naz is only a thing if Gobert plays. If Gobert and Naz are both in, then Minnesota's, I don't want to say uneventful, but there's nobody you absolutely have to have. Of course, you can get some pieces. Anything else we should stress here as far as the Rockets and Washington? I heard that you really, really like Jalen Green and 4 or 5 Wizards. Seems like a fun way to start building a lineup out. Anything else you want to point out that before we move on to the next game?
Yeah, it's weird. I want to be over the field, I think, on so many players in this game, but maybe under the field on the rosters that have all players from this game and like 1 or 2 other roster spots, if that makes sense. So like I will have like almost every single one of my rosters is going to have multiple guys from this game. But I do think, the rest of the games are going to be important. Maybe not Charlotte or Orlando, but all the other games, maybe have something we want to, talk about or get to. And so like the winning lineup will probably have some players from this game, but it is probably not going to be a total game stack in this game.
Over under players from Houston, Washington, the winning big contest on DK, 4.5.
Yeah. I think I'd go under 4.5. Like I'd say it's probably going to end up being like 4, but I don't know. I'm running sims in my head, right? I'd guess it's going to be about 4. Like, what if one of these other games goes into overtime or something like that, right? Or the real possibility is that like this game starts off really high scoring and it's 70 to 45 at halftime with Houston winning, and some of these guys maybe don't come out in the second half.
Yeah, that's the Houston side though. But if you're playing with 4 Wizards, like they can't just, the game's not going to end. And then that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, if you're running the bench stuff, Butler, Bernard, I guess. I don't know, man. It's gonna be ugly. It's a while. It's gonna be a game I watch. I'm gonna watch this game. It's gonna be nonsense, just pure nonsense. Okay. This game not terribly eventful to me. It's a 5-gamer. It's 20% of the slate. We got to talk about it. That's the Pelicans at the Nets. 215.5. It's a total. Pels are 8-point favorites here on the road. We just heard DFS is officially in for the Nets. This is at 7:30, by the way. Those are the 2 7:00 games. Brooklyn is healthy as they're going to be. DFS is in, so nobody else of relevance. Simmons, we know, is done for the season. New Orleans is fully healthy, and they're just like Orlando. They play pretty deep. They they have some studs. Their studs are better than Orlando, but I'm just sort of thinking the way they kind of build out their minutes. I don't think there's any priorities here, but as you were alluding to, like just the one-off, this feels like a slate where like a one-off can like just win it. Like you have the right shell and that one guy who like you really can't project to put up 55 or 60 points that's projected for like 40, that could be the difference maker. Maybe that difference maker is Zion. Maybe it's Ingram. Your thoughts as far as New Orleans and Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think that's actually a good call because I think Luka's ownership is going to skyrocket with no Wizard over 6,600 or whatever Jordan Poole is. Yeah, I think you're going to see a ton of ownership going to Luka, and that might just be the slate, right? Like maybe Luka has his 85 points. The Wizards that we all think are going to score well, but I do think there's a bunch of other possibilities that are that are just as feasible. One of them is like Zion is the guy you need to have, or Brandon Ingram puts up 50 points. Those are possibilities too. So yeah, I mean, I was thinking about if Dorian Finney-Smith was out, maybe those minutes go somewhere interesting. They're probably not going to now. But I think the New Orleans guys are still definitely in play. Zion, Brandon Ingram. Probably more interested in Zion and getting a little bit more of the New Orleans guys on FanDuel than on DraftKings, but still getting some trace amounts on DraftKings.
Brooklyn, tough matchup, obviously, against New Orleans. They're fully healthy. There's really no bargains. Nobody's projecting more than 10%. Now, ownership projections are going to change, obviously. This is as of 5/11 on the East Coast, and we've had so much news drop. So, that's going to adjust. But I still don't envision anybody on Brooklyn really popping. Your favorite player on Brooklyn, it's a 5-gamer, and again, it's not hard to get over the field on some of these players that people are just not going to play. And the pool is going to be so concise as far as like who people are going to be playing mostly. Not a pun, by the way, saying pool, because Jordan Poole is going to be super, super popular. But yeah, favorite net tonight is who?
Probably Nick Claxton, and hope for like just a big stocks night. If I'm not able to get to Claxton, I think maybe Cam Thomas, and hope that he has 30 points, 10 rebounds or assists or whatever. I don't think those are the most likely outcomes. This is maybe the team I'm third least interested in after like Charlotte and Orlando. But yeah, I think there's still a significant or still a reasonable chance somebody from Brooklyn ends up on the winning lineup, right? I think the two most likely guys would be Claxton and Cam Thomas. But the team I'm third least interested in.
Claxton could get like 5 or 6 stocks. He can get like 15 boards. He can get the double-double with some dunks. And Cam Thomas can drop 30 points in the bucket. Those things that can happen that can help them get there. I see people in chat talking about Nance. Like the Jonas Valanciunas Nance thing is such a mess. I don't really think one of those guys breaks the slate. I don't think so. We're down to 19 minutes for Valanciunas. He's a great fantasy point player. It's just him staying on the court has been tough for him. I don't think this is a matchup where it's like you gotta play Valanciunas. And the other part of it, of course, is they'll play Zion at the 5. We're giving 22 to Nance, 19 to Valanciunas, and I assume the rest of those are presumed as far as the center minutes will be delegated to Zion playing the 5. Oh, we got JRE for a minute, just a hedge minute for Robinson Earl too, another big that probably won't play, but he might. Are we messing with that? You're supposed to lean in on the high variance stuff on smaller slates, but I don't think I'm messing with Joe Val or Nance.
No, Larry Nance is like the Jonathan Isaac of centers. He's a guy who shows up in my lineups because he'll play 20 to 25 minutes, and he's good NBA player for the time that he's out there, and he'll put up some fantasy scores. And if he ever plays bigger minutes, there's potential there. But he shows up in my line. He shows up and ends up in my actual lineups that I play way more often than I intend. Because there's just nothing you can do about that minutes cap until his minutes aren't capped anymore. But I don't think he's going to be playing more than 25 minutes. It's really tough to win a GPP. Not playing more than 25 minutes.
There is legit one spot remaining in the RG tournament that's in the current in the Discord, RotoGrinders.com/Discord. Go in the live stream chat channel. If you finish first in this contest, it's a free contest. Finish first, get yourself a week free of RotoGrinders Premium. It might be gone by the time I finish this sentence. Also, while you're clicking things, hit that like button and subscribe and turn on those notifications. We appreciate all that. Crunch Snap's coming on about 15 minutes or so. You got TastefulTides Tim, Keith Eyster, as well as Kevin Roth. By the way, in our poll question, $0 to $50, how much money do you enter in DFS daily? No shaming. $0 to $50 is the clear runaway winner at 71%, 51 to 100, 15%, 101 to 257%, and 250 plus is at 6%. So, all right. Well, there you go. Everybody's grinding away, trying to make $1 here. Try to have some fun too. It's supposed to be fun as well. You want to be profitable as well. It can be tilting at times. Let's knock out these last two games before we turn it over to crunch time. Minnesota, we still didn't get any clarity as we were kind of anticipating. Dallas and San Antonio. This is 8 o'clock on the East Coast. 234 is the total. San Antonio is a 9-point dog here. Battle of Texas. Luka, who's just the ownership is going to be outrageous because you have all the salary in the world. Salary matters certainly, but raw points do as well. And he's projected to score, what is this raw points run? 67, 68, 69, give or take. It's a lot. It's a big boy number for sure. Let's see. What do we currently have him for raw points wise? I got to do a little scrolling. 66.98 is a median score on DK. Who's in and who's out in this game? Well, San Antonio did lose Zach Collins today. They're back up 5. He's got a concussion. As far as Dallas, they are fully healthy with the exception of Josh Green, who's got an ankle. The Luka question, you were talking about pivoting away, going with Joker. Maybe you could play Kyrie if you want to play Kyrie. Get yourself a better 6th or 7th player if you want to do it that way. But where does this ownership settle? Like 50% at least, right? Am I crazy to say that? It's going to be 50%, isn't it? Yeah.
It's possible. I think it'll be under 50, but he'll be popular. Like, people are going to be able to jam him in. And I think we're going to see a lot of similar looking lineups. And it's like, I think I'm going to end up under the field. While still playing a healthy amount of him. Like, yeah, I might have him at this ownership percentage, like 26% or whatever. And I think it'll be a notch higher.
Does that mean you naturally pivot to Kyrie? That you expect they're going to score against San Antonio. The matchup against San Antonio is obviously awesome. They have a 121 team total, which may be, I think it is the highest total on the board. It is. It's a couple points higher than Houston. And if Luka's not doing it, Kyrie's got to be doing it, right? Dallas is pretty predictable. Also, you're not rooting for injury. But if we had a scoreboard of guys that visit the locker room in the middle of games, now he almost always comes back. But this feels like a game, Luka, you never know. I think it's an interesting angle to play some Kyrie, because beyond that, the players aren't terribly appealing. You can get Gafford. Gafford's got a pretty good price here. But his minutes are kind of volatile with all the bigs there with Dallas now, with Lively, with Kleber. If you're not playing a ton of Luka, if you're going to be under the field, which is going to be a big number, are we playing some Kyrie? Or are you just not playing a lot of Dallas?
Yeah, I'd probably lean towards just not playing as much Dallas and maybe going – the other guys I want to spend up on are probably we have yet to get to, but probably Wembanyama and Jokic. I'm okay just kind of betting that it's a Wemby game or a Jokic game and not a Luka game or a Luka night or whatever. Luka's actually been playing pretty big minutes without putting up huge scores. I mean, he's still putting up 60-something fantasy points, but he's 12-7 on FanDuel and 12-5 on DraftKings. I think he's a little bit of a better play on DraftKings. Yeah, the double bonus, triple-double bonus, extra half point for 3-pointers. So on FanDuel, I definitely want to be under the field. Just because the score. I mean, and obviously Luka is the guy that can just bury you. And if he's putting up a 90-point fantasy performance, he's going to bury me. At 12-7, I'm going to roll the dice that it's more in the 60-somethings, and that some other guys are going to be under-owned as a result of Luka seeing high ownership.
70 doesn't bury you. He puts up 70, you're not buried. You're still live. Yeah. And if I told you he gives you 70, no more, no less, do you hit the lock button? I maybe 80%. And that's kind of a hedge. I don't know if I'd lock it, but I think there's different routes where 70 is it's fine. It's good. Yeah. Right. Just talking hypotheticals, obviously, it's not something we do not have access to a Gray Sports Almanac or a DeLorean. That's not going to be the case. He's not going to score exactly 70, no more, no less. I am giving a refresh. I'm really curious to see what they land on as far as ownership stuff. I know they're figuring it out right now. It's a tough task, especially with all the Washington stuff, which is it's hard to predict how the field's going to react to Washington. And we also want to see a starting lineup there. Hey, how about Wemby? Wemby's another star he could be the top scoring player on this slate. I don't know if they'll give him any extra minutes with the absence of Collins. I saw somebody in chat asking about Barlow. He's the backup. He's kind of in that Isaac bucket, I think. You can tell yourself a story, I guess. You're rooting for Wemby foul trouble. You're rooting for a blowout. I think he's a pretty good fantasy point minute player, but what is he on this season? 0.96, got a 15% usage. Not spectacular for a big, but not terrible. Wemby, the Spurs, what do you got?
Yeah, so interested in Wembanyama here. He's played at least 30 minutes every game in March. So he's averaging like 32 minutes a game, and we're starting to see like what he can do. And it might break fantasy basketball. So definitely interested in Wembanyama on FanDuel. DraftKings also still interested in him. You get one less point for his like 7 blocks. So factor that in. It's kind of factored into the price already. Really interested in Wembanyama here. I guess like some of the other Spurs are reasonable. Like Devin Vassell is definitely in play. 7,300 on DraftKings, and 7,500 on FanDuel. So Dallas doesn't have a good defense here, like San Antonio does, but neither does Dallas. So could be a high scoring game. Like wouldn't be shocking if this game at a higher price tag is what is the highest scoring game of the night, and you want more pieces of this than you do in the Washington-Houston game. But you just need the key value pieces from Washington and Houston.
Dallas, the 4th worst rebounding team in the league. Also, for what it's worth, I don't think this is going to chase you away if you want some blocks out of Wemby, but Dallas is the 2nd least blocked team in the league, just getting blocked four times per game. Yeah. Did you say that?
No, I saw that actually when I was looking at for expert survey stuff. But
okay, yeah. And it doesn't mean you can't play Wemby. Doesn't mean Wemby can't get like 7 blocks here. But just I did think that was somewhat interesting. They're talking about Shooter Jenkins talking about Wemby's minutes being might have reserve minutes. I think there's going to be a spot maybe where it happens. I just don't think that's going to happen tonight. You were talking about 30 minutes every single game this month. It's an island game. Didn't play yesterday, not playing tomorrow. There's kind of an in-state rivalry with Dallas, right? The Texas Triangle. I think he gets his standard minutes. 32 was what we're projecting. So, could it happen? Sure. But I don't think there's any reason to think that's going to happen tonight. Anything else we should stress here before we talk about the Minnesota game, which is the hammer?
I think we can move on to Minnesota and Denver.
Derek wants to know favorite cheap center other than Landell. I think Landell is our favorite. Who's our second favorite? Is it Isaac?
Cheap center.
Barlow?
It depends how cheap.
Gill?
But is Daniel Gafford considered cheap?
Yeah, I think Gafford, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that qualifies as cheap. It's not expensive. It's lower mid-tier. CB saying, why not Carter in Orlando? He just doesn't get enough minutes for me, which is he's fine. But, we didn't really talk about Carter. I think he's sort of fine. I'm assuming you think he's fine.
It's such a low-scoring game, and I don't want to cloud it. What if we end up with Luka Garza starting or something?
Yeah, it's a good segue. We'll talk about that in a second. And somebody mentioned Holmes in chat. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, if Holmes is not going to get owned, and I understand why he's not, I totally get it. But, there's a chance he plays 30 minutes. There's also a chance he plays 18 or 20. But, we're shooting for first. And if they're trying to win the game, which, whatever. I mean, again, this isn't really – we talked about this before. They can win a couple games here, and it's not going to matter as far as their tank stuff. Maybe he plays a few more. Let's talk about Denver. Denver and Minnesota. This is a game that really, really matters in the standings. They're both currently tied for second in the Western Conference, identical records. Minnesota, the only team playing in the back half of back-to-back, the only team that's not an island game. They're the only team, the team that's having the most injuries that we don't know about. So it just works out perfectly in the latest game. Edwards has that finger. We really think he's going to play. Gobert's got that rib. We'll see. Nas has the head, and he left last game possibly with a concussion. There was just no reporting on it. I don't know. And if that was the case, I think you just can't play the next day. There's a certain time period. So I think he's the one that's most likely to does not play. You kind of laid that out earlier in the show as well. Denver, they are fully healthy. Zeke Naji is questionable. Who cares? They have Joker, who can also be the top scoring player in this slate. So can Anthony Edwards. Let's talk about Denver and Minnesota. What do you got?
It's a really interesting game to get to because it's going to see lower ownership. There's just not much you can do without that Minnesota news, except play kind of everybody, assuming that they're all going to be healthy. I'm probably going to assume everyone's healthy here and try to be over the field. I'm probably not going to be playing any Nas Reed going in, just because it's an easy swap down from Gobert to Nas Reed. And you just see if you have somebody else in that lineup, that you can upgrade. It's interesting. One of the things that's interesting here is that you've got two really good centers with Gobert and Jokic. It's you can just be over the field on Jokic, and then if you get some funny business, you drop down from Jokic to Gobert, or let's say Gobert is in, Anthony Edwards is out, something like that. You drop down from Jokic to Gobert. You can do stuff with Mike Conley. I was talking about that, where if you end up dropping down in salary from center, let's say you're going from Gobert to Luka Garza, maybe you're going up from Mike Conley to Jamal Murray. There's just a bunch. There's kind of guys that are interesting at every position. Anthony Edwards is the guy you would probably be most interested in from Minnesota, but then you can drop down from Edwards to Michael Porter or Aaron Gordon, depending where the positionality is. And then, I don't know, there's a lot of really interesting swaps you can get to. So I'm weirdly interested in stacking this game a lot, and then just late swapping accordingly, but that's more of a 150 thing. But if you're doing a single lineup, you can come up with some pretty solid, I'm going to play Jokic and Mike Conley, and I'm swapping accordingly. If Gobert is in, then Jokic doesn't have a good matchup anymore, but I'm going to play Gobert, and then I'm upgrading from Mike Conley to Jamal Murray or something like that. Just a bunch of interesting swaps you can get.
We just got an update as far as ownership, DK specific, Joker at 7%. Just that seems really interesting to me. Murray at 20%. Certainly you can pay Murray, but and I understand why Murray's coming in a little bit higher than Joker is. Minnesota, it's going to be up in the air. We don't know, pending news, but Edwards at 10%, sure, absolutely. I said earlier in the show, I think minutes are going to get pushed because this game is really meaningful. Minnesota has 2 or 3 days off after this. I know it's a back-to-back and 3rd and 4 nights for them. I think it's 3rd and 4 nights. I know it's a back-to-back, but Edwards is young. He plays through everything. I can see him pushing 40 minutes if necessary. It's funny though, like Luke Garza is a guy, it's a chance if everything falls that way. And I know we had Garza season on Minnesota a couple of years ago, right? I feel like it was on Minnesota, right? I think it was on Minnesota. Maybe it was Detroit. That's probably what I'm thinking of. He's a good fantasy player when he gets a chance, but do not plan for that. But there's a chance that could happen if everything sort of falls that direction. Eric's asking if I saw a dunk. Yes, we talked about the dunk earlier today for Edwards. Just spectacular stuff. Flying Armbar saying TJ Warren. Yeah, TJ Warren is currently on a 10-day contract. Maybe. That's a lot of stay tuned stuff, a lot of if-then stuff.
These are the guys that'll be guarding Jokic if Gobert and Nas Reed are out. By the way. So just keep that in mind.
I think we get a huge game out of Joker. I really do. And I don't care about the Gobert defense. We've seen in the past where he's roasted Gobert. And I love the idea of him at 7%. The Washington stuff is going to be crazy popular. By the way, ownership, I was kind of surprised. This is definitely surprising to me as far as the ownership for Luka on DK. We have 50% pool, 50% Champagne. I'm rounding up a little bit. And then Luka's coming in at 29%. I thought it'd be higher than that. 50 was probably too ambitious, but probably somewhere in the middle of that. And I'm also thinking single entry, smaller field stuff where it's harder to fade that. But all right. I know we have Crunch Time coming in. We got Tasteful Tides. We have Keith. We have Roth. They're coming in 3 and 2. What is up, Kevin Roth? Roth, did you watch your boy Brunson last night in New York? They played Josh Hart 48 of the available 48 minutes. Which shout out to Tim, by the way. I think Tim that was his big call last night. Josh Hart now has, I think, 6 triple doubles, which is like 4th in the league, something like that. Because you play 48 minutes, you can eke your way there.
We talked about. I think a few people were talking about talking him up for the triple double last night, and he came through for us. And it's like the Rajon Rondo triple double, where he gets like 10 or 11 points. You know, those are fun ones.
Shout out to Rajon Rondo. He's probably playing somewhere still, isn't he? I have no idea what he's up to these days, but yeah, it was a rough last couple of years for Rajon. Russ is kind of going in that direction too. I don't want to push him there just yet. Everything else all right in your Roth? We got a 5-gamer. You're gonna love it. There's a lot of nonsense for Washington. You can play Luka very easily. It's a Roth slate for sure.
Yeah, I'm in. I got nothing better to do tonight, so yeah, I'm all in. Put the chips in.
Squirrel, we got to give the people a feel it in the plums play. I feel like you kind of hinted at several guys. I'm curious who you're going to officially land on. But, there goes our backdrop for a second. Like, what just happened there? Was that my TV? All right. Squirrel, hook him up with the old film in the plums play of the night before we yield to crunch time.
Yeah. It was tempting to go with Luka Garza or TJ Warren, but I'm going to go with they may be trying to defend Nikola Jokic. He's got low ownership now. If Minnesota can't put anybody taller than like 6'9" on the court, he should have higher than 4% ownership.
Tim, I meant to ask, did you play you were talking about it last night. Did you play Josh Hart in your single entry?
So I was going to, and then Gobert got ruled out, so I switched to Naz Reid. And I ended up missing by 6 points with Naz Reid.
I don't know if you know this, but Naz Reid, he didn't play the second half last night. Did you catch that? You're probably wondering what happened.
I caught that, Dean. I caught that one. Yeah. Yeah. It was like 2 beats all in the same lineup.
Yeah, I had some Nas as well too. It's a bummer. Nothing. It was, you know what it was? It was process versus results. It was a good process, but what are you gonna do? It's DFS though. You get back at it, scores back to 0. We're gonna win something tonight. You know who's gonna help you out? It's Tasteful Tides. It's Keith Eyster. It's Kevin Roth. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff as always. Welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. You know the drill. It is crunch time. Gonna take you up to lock with a couple of the sharpest minds in the biz. Back at it again. I feel like I've seen you guys every day now. I'm almost getting tired of you guys. But how are you, Tim? What's up, man?
Well, that was a really nice intro.
I love you guys. I'm not getting tired of you. I'm kidding.
No. I mean, last night was a very, very brutal, bad beat for me. But whatever. I'll get over it.
What happened with why did he not come out in the second half? I missed it. Is he hurt?
He got hit in the head, I think. Some kind of head injury. So, which is kind of a big deal tonight too. So, that's like the only news really since we got the Washington news. Now it's we got to wait on Gobert and Reed. That those two are the big news. So I have a feeling Gobert is going to play though because he was at shoot around. So I think he'll play, but I'm not positive of that.
He was at shoot around too yesterday, I think though.
Oh, he was. Okay.
I think so.
All right. Okay. I did not know that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We got Keith Eyster, aka the Iceman, in the house. What's up, Ice?
Yeah, not much. I also took some Naz Reid beats. He was absolutely smashing too. He was well on his way to that 50 burger that we talked about. Thought we had it played perfectly, but didn't quite work out. Injuries happen. We move on. Fun little slate here today. All kinds of value yet again, and waiting on the Minnesota stuff. Did you see the Anthony Edwards dunk last night? Because that was
great. He just detonates on people. Like that's the only way to describe it. He just is like, I'm going to go 14 feet in the air and throw it down on you. He's just freaking incredible, man. He's young. How old is he? Like 23 or something? 24?
Yeah, he's under 25 for sure.
He's under 25.
Like he might just be that dude. Like he might be it, like the future of the NBA. He might be like it. He might be the fucking guy. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I get pumped. He's the man. Like he is the absolute man. Somebody said, "Hey, the dunk was amazing, but it was an offensive foul and traveling." Get out of here! Get out of here with that nonsense.
He did kind of put his hand right in his face. I'm not disputing that, but it was still
allowed.
Amazing. Yeah,
we allow it. Okay, I need one of y'all to dive into the slate. I have to do something. I'll be back in like 2 or 3 minutes. I apologize, but I have to run. It's just bad timing. Tim, walk me through things.
Yeah. Okay. So we got all this Washington stuff, all this Washington value. We got Kuzma out. They're down to 9 players on the active roster. So I mean, you're going to be getting to a ton of Washington. You're probably going to be playing, I would say, 4 in cash games on both FanDuel and DK. Really, I mean, possibly optimals are showing 5 on DK. I don't know if I'd play 5, but either way, you're going to be playing a ton of Washington tonight. You're definitely going to be getting to some Houston. And then it gets kind of tricky after that. Like, there's obviously this whole Luka and Jokic situation. Like, Luka is so easy to play, and so is Jokic. So I'm going to be interested to see if people try to play both and kind of skip some of this mid-range stuff, or if they're going to go a little bit more balanced. But yeah, so it's definitely jam-packed full of Washington. I can't say to fade them because they are simming really well in sims right now. They're popping in optimals. So it's definitely a Washington night. And then probably going to get to a couple Houston guys also. And then, I don't know, Keith, are you getting to any of this Charlotte-Orlando game?
I'm really not. Charlotte has one of the lowest totals we've seen all season. 95 points. And then Orlando they play too many guys for me to ever really want to target them. Charlotte's been improved on the defensive end, so yeah, I'm basically just skipping over that game. I think the one guy I have, and he's DK only for me, is Bertans. Just hoping that he picks up a few extra minutes there and just a way to get off of some of that Washington value. But yeah, I don't have any interest in paying up for Paolo.
Right.
Charlotte's kind of had the same rotation, so they're priced appropriately. Orlando's good on D, so no, I'm avoiding that game mostly.
Yeah, I ran 100 lineups in Sims just to see like if they were simming at all, and I got to like 4% Bonchero and like 5% Bertans, 10% Micic, and I think that's about it for that game. So that game is pretty bad. I don't mind personally Wendell Carter at 5,600, even though he's not going to play a ton of minutes. But I think center is kind of a weird spot tonight on DK, at least. I wouldn't mind getting to some Wendell Carter if I was actually making like 20 teams. I might put him in one. So I don't know.
I want it noted I wasn't pooping. Everyone said.
Oh, is that where people? I wasn't reading the chat.
The chat is hilarious. They're like, "Did you wash your hands?" Now that Roth hit the bathroom mid-show, the show deserves to. To be clear,
it's a poll question.
Yeah, is it a poll question?
Yeah, I'm definitely voting yes.
To be clear, the garage door guy came. I've been waiting on him literally all day to fix his garage door, and he showed up like right as the show started, of course. Anyways, I'm back. I don't know what I missed, but maybe it's Ice's turn to go through a tournament takes.
We were just kind of doing it together, but I mean, I can go position by position for cash real quick.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So let's start with FanDuel. We'll go to point guard. I'm going to start with Luka because he's so easy to play. Like, he might not be the best point per dollar play at point guard, but I'm starting my cash build with him. We have so many cheap guys, we can play him easily. So I would play Luka, and then I would play I'd make sure that you have Jordan Poole, but I'd probably put him in your shooting guard spot. But yeah, I'd definitely start with Luka. And then it's kind of a debate between FVV and Jalen Green. I'm going to lean Jalen Green personally, but if people want to go FVV, that's completely fine. Jalen Green does have shooting guard eligibility also, whereas FVV's point guard only. That would be kind of it for me in terms of like pure point guards. Shooting guard, you're gonna be playing one of Jared Butler or Jules Bernard. I would probably lean with Jared Butler, but it's kind of close. And then you're playing Jordan Poole in your shooting guard spot. You absolutely have to play Poole and cash. So, and then you need to punt one of your shooting guard spots with one of these cheap Washington pieces. That's the cash game play. There are other things you could do, like in single entry or large field, but Poole you cannot fade in cash games. And then small forward again, it's these cheap Washington guys. Justin Champagnie is probably the best value play on the entire slate on both DK and FanDuel. And then you have Patrick Baldwin also. So, I mean, those two are definitely your cash game small forwards. It's really not that complicated. There are guys like Dylan Brooks or Corey Kispert that are fine for GPPs, but I will not play them in cash. And then there are pay-up options. If you pay up at small forward, you're going to be very contrarian because there's really not a lot of places to pay up. So if you pay up to guys like Bonchero or Ingram, something like that, you'll be super contrarian with your build. But that is not for cash games. That's just for GPPs. Mm-hmm. And then power forward, Jabari Smith, 6,800. That seems just way too cheap. He's by far the best points per dollar play at power forward. I don't mind Aaron Gordon tonight. I think it's a pretty decent spot for him. And then Zion's in a great spot, same as Ingram. Like, nobody's going to play these guys. You can't play them in cash. Same thing with Wemby. Like, I don't think you can really play Wemby in cash, as weird as that sounds. But he's obviously a great tournament play. But really, you're playing 3 to 4 Washington players and then like 2 Houston players in cash games on FanDuel. And then center's a little bit tricky. I kind of wanted to play Rashawn Holmes, and I'm just not sure. I think that's who I'm probably going to play. If I have the money, I might go to Nick Claxton also. And then, obviously you have Wemby and Jokic for GPPs.
Yeah, I don't understand how every build doesn't just start with Wemby. Like, start with the guy who's going to get you 70 points and figure it out from there. But
yeah, I know. I really am curious what happens with his ownership today because, like, it's so easy to play Luka and it's so easy to play Jokic. Like, what are people going to do with Wemby? Like, it's pretty...
Play him over both of those guys. Like,
yeah,
play him. I feel like that's the answer. But let's kick it over to Ice. He is our tournament guru here. By the way, your guys' comments are freaking hilarious. I've very much so enjoyed reading them. Again, as a garage door guy, I wasn't pooping, and I would have left the vent on if I was, for whoever said I wouldn't. Ice, why don't you walk me through your tournament takes here?
All right, let's do it. I think the first thing we need to address is all the cheap Washington stuff. Down so many players. There's some really cheap guys who should have huge roles here tonight. So it's pretty tough to get away from Washington. Limiting them is something I've considered. On FanDuel, I think I leave it set at 4, and I'm okay with 4. I do want to kind of attack some minutes things, though. They got beat by 26, 28 points, something like that against Boston.
Hey, Keith, time. I got to interrupt you. Champagnie's not starting.
Interesting.
Davis is starting for Champagnie.
Okay, so that's going to change some things. That I think that's going to raise Davis's ownership quite a bit, and Champagnie's going to come way down. I still love Champagnie in tournaments.
I still love Champagnie too, but I knew you were just about to talk about minutes. So
yeah, and well, yeah. The exact point I was about to make is Champagnie started and closed the blowout, so his minutes were as secure as anybody on the slate, and obviously that is now no longer the case. I still think he has a decent shot to play 30. We talked about this with Banton yesterday as well, getting kicked out of the starting lineup. Ownership came way down, and he still played 33 minutes. So like this can still happen. There's still a path for Champagnie to get way up there. He is way underpriced. They only have 9 guys total. I expect them to close in a blowout even. So still like Champagnie. If that lowers his ownership, great. Davis is the one that I was really interested in for tournaments because, or actually Butler. Butler is the guy that did not close. But just playing the ownership game a little bit on this Washington team, similar to what we talked about with Detroit yesterday, and then the starting lineup ended up being different for Detroit also. So that changed from what we addressed on the show. But just now we already have the Washington lineup. Johnny Davis's ownership is probably on the move way up. But a guy like Jared Butler coming off the bench, like it would not surprise me to see one of these bench guys play more minutes than a guy like even Kispert. Like I think they're in true evaluation mode. They know what they have in guys like Jordan Poole and Corey Kispert. So as soon as this game gets out of hand, I think they're going to be willing to go to the younger guys like Davis, Butler, Bernard, Champagny, even in that conversation. But don't be afraid to play everybody on Washington. Essentially, even Anthony Gill got a bunch of minutes in the blowout, so he is playable. On FanDuel specifically here, Rashawn Holmes' ownership looks really, really good. And I think his minutes are extremely volatile as well. He only played 19 minutes in the last one, but that was really because of the blowout. I think there's upside for 30 minutes. We have him projected for 26. He's a really good per minute guy. Houston doesn't have a ton of size. They're starting Jabari Smith at the 5 more than likely, but they do have Jock Landale as well. So assuming that this game is close, I think Holmes will be out there quite a bit. So I really like him. Love the ownership number here on FanDuel, and he's even a little bit under-owned on DraftKings in my opinion. But getting a little bit different with your Washington exposure, I think is important. And then I would not just play Washington and play Luka and hope that you're going to win a tournament tonight, because that's what everybody is doing. Mm-hmm. I love Luka. I think that he smashes, but just for example, don't play Baldwin, Poole, and Davis with Luka and hope that you can win a tournament that way, because there's way too much ownership. There's going to be way too many similar lineups to that. So if you're playing the chalky Washington guys, I would pivot to a Jokic or a Wemby, like we just talked about. Like it would surprise no one if either of those two guys outscored Luka on this slate. Like, yeah, Luka's projecting the best. He's in a great spot. But it's tournaments, anything can happen. So just be mindful of roster construction, I would say, is probably the most important thing on this slate, because it's pretty obvious how you want to build, and that's cheap Washington and then jam in a couple of studs. But just be mindful of grouping the ownership together.
Nice. All right. You want to run through it position by position for me?
Yeah, let's do it. So at point guard, of course, Luka in a great spot. I'm not trying to go overweight the field on Luka. I think he's fantastic, but I would rather be overweight on Jokic and Wemby today. Van Vliet, another guy that I'm underweight on. I do like him. I think there's plenty of ceiling here. I just like Jalen Green's ceiling more. He's been playing incredible over the second half of the season here, so I do prefer Jalen Green with Tim on that call. Poole is just kind of similar to Van Vliet. I'm just playing him very similar to the field and then looking to get different in lineups that I'm playing him. But he's obviously in a great spot. If the game's close, he could get 30 shots up pretty easily here. Jamal Murray is interesting as a pivot away. Kyrie Irving is extremely interesting. Again, if you're playing like chalky Washington guys, playing Kyrie over Luka, I think is a fantastic way to differentiate that lineup. Amen Thompson is expensive here on FanDuel, but I do think he's in play for tournaments. Just awesome matchup, obviously, against Washington. Has been starting and playing the minutes here. So even though he's expensive, I think you can take a stab there in tournaments. Dylan Brooks as a cheaper guy. Not an exciting play, but just a way to get some differentiation in there. I think he's fine. Jared Butler, just mentioned him. He's one of my favorite ways to differentiate my Washington exposure. I think there's potential he could play a few more minutes than we saw in that last game. Anthony Edwards, I'm going right back to that. I expect him to play in this one. He's just a guy who rarely sits. He did dislocate a finger on that incredible dunk yesterday. It was on his off shooting hand, so I don't think it really impacts him. He should be totally fine. Affects ball handling more than anything, I think, but shouldn't affect his shooting. So he's super expensive. The ownership number looks great on Edwards. Another one of my favorite spend ups to differentiate some chalky Washington lineups. At forwards, I love Zion Williamson. Like, he's just shown an incredible ceiling. He's been playing a little bit different role here. Don't love the game environment. Brooklyn plays kind of slow. New Orleans plays slow, but Zion just has an incredible ceiling with as much as he's been touching the ball here recently. Wemby, we talked about a couple of times already. It just an insane ceiling. I like the matchup against Dallas. We'll definitely find a way to get over the field on him. Let's see here. I think the Denver guys are interesting. Like the matchup against Minnesota is obviously brutal, but Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., we could see them just find enough to do enough on a shorter slate where you can certainly play those guys. At the center position, I talked about Rashawn Holmes being one of my favorites. Jokic, obviously, I'm spending up for him. And I will build, once again, way overweight on Rudy Gobert. If Gobert gets ruled out, I will pivot to Naz Reid. Naz Reid is also questionable today, which is a different wrench than we had yesterday. So you do run into a little bit of a problem there if both Reid and Gobert get ruled out. But then you're going to be looking at, like, I don't know, Luka Garza potentially being in play. Like, I don't know how many minutes they'd be willing to run him out there for. But I would just make sure that you have at least two guys, I think, in that Minnesota, Denver, and with my Jokic exposure, my Anthony Edwards exposure, I should be able to move things around enough if Reid and Gobert end up getting rolled out. But I want whichever, if Gobert's in there, I want to be over on Gobert. If he's out, I want to be over on Naz.
Okay. I did get this question that I thought was interesting from our guy, Butthole Jenkins. He says, can you fade Luka, Wemby, and Jokic and still cash? Like, everybody's playing one of those dudes, right? Is there a mid-range build that works today?
There's so much cheap stuff that I don't think that's the way. Like, I'd put Anthony Edwards in that conversation as well. Kyrie Irving. Like, I think you want one of those, like, top 5, 6, maybe Zion's in that as well. I just don't know that he has like the 60-point ceiling that you would need to match a guy like Luka, Jokic, or Wemby. If there were better, like, there's just not a ton of ceiling guys because there's fewer games on the slate. I feel like you need one of those. We'll call it 9,900 and above.
Yeah, I mean, one of them is going off, right?
Yeah,
all three of them are not going to disappoint. One of them is dropping a 70 burger, right? Probably.
Yeah, you have to think so. And then if you put Edwards or Kyrie and Zion in that conversation as well, like somebody should be getting there out of that group.
Yeah. Okay. Let's kick it over to DK. Let's talk about what's different over there. Tim, you want to walk me through a build?
Sure. Yeah. There's not a whole lot that's different other than the fact that Amen Thompson is significantly easier to play on DK. He's super cheap. He's definitely in your cash games. I wouldn't play him at point guard. I'd play him at small forward. Again, you're going to Jordan Poole. You're going to Luka, FEV, Jalen Green, all very, very strong cash game plays. So, but yeah, the big difference is Thompson. He's a standout cash game play on DraftKings and not so much on FanDuel. Shooting guard, probably, you're going to have to punt with these Washington guys. We're giving Johnny Davis 29 minutes. He's shooting guard, small forward. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play him in cash. I still wouldn't mind getting to Jules Bernard, but we only have Bernard projected for 22 minutes. So maybe you go for the more minutes and lower usage. I don't know. Like, it's a toss up, but you need to get to at least a few of these guys. So I'd lean to Bernard, but it's a coin toss between those two. And then small forward, I'm still going Champagny, even though he's going to lose a couple minutes not starting. He's super cheap on DK. He's only 4,200. He's still a cash game staple. Play him at a forward spot, play Thompson at your small forward spot, and there you go. I wouldn't fool around with anybody else for cash games, really. And then obviously if you pay up, just like on FanDuel, if you pay up at small forward, you're going to be super different. And that's okay for GPPs, but not okay for cash. And then power forward, Patrick Baldwin, I like a ton. I really feel secure with his minutes, so he's definitely a cash game lock for me. Only 4,000 on DraftKings, so I think he's a standout play. Dylan Brooks is okay, but I would prefer just saving the 700 with Baldwin. I think Jabari Smith at 6,900 is a very strong play also. You always want to attack Washington when you can. So you definitely need to be playing a couple of Houston guys in cash. I think we talked about Aaron Gordon. It's only 5,700 on DK. Absolutely love that. So if you don't have the money for like Jabari, I think you could conceivably play Aaron Gordon in cash games tonight. I've seen some chatter about Anthony Gill. I think he's fine for tournaments, but I would not play him in cash. Same thing with Corey Kispert. Not a cash game play for me, but fine for GPPs. And then center, I guess it's Rashawn Holmes. I have a build right now that's got Daniel Gafford in it, but I'm not like completely sold with that. Since we're paying out for Luka and we're playing Jordan Poole, it's really tough to play Luka and Jokic in cash games. But I think that's a really, really interesting way to play a single entry or GPP is to play Luka and Jokic and then jam in, a couple cheap Washington players and like a couple cheap, maybe Dallas players also.
Do you like Jokic over Wemby? Like price included?
Like straight up?
Yeah.
Yes, I like you.
You're on drugs. You are on drugs. You're out of your mind. You can save $2,000 and get the guy who's gonna score just as many points.
Well, no, I asked straight up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I meant price included.
Price included. Okay, it's a lot closer. Yeah. I guess price included, I like Wemby better.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I thought I almost had a stroke. All right. Okay. That's fair, though. Ice, your tournament thoughts here?
Not a lot different. I think you kind of play it the same way. My biggest struggle I'm having right now is, am I limiting Washington to 4, or do I want to keep it at 3? I think going to 3 is a good way to differentiate. And I think it's more viable now that we have Johnny Davis in the starting lineup, because I don't feel as confident that he's going to put up the fantasy points that Champagny would have. And I do still prefer Champagny, even though he's coming off the bench. But I think limiting Washington to 3 on DraftKings is going to be pretty unique today.
So who are your 3?
I mean, I'm going to mix and match every single guy that's active, but my 3 favorites, I do think Rashawn Holmes, like, I'm not sure I'm sold on this ownership number. It's going to be a little bit higher than this. He's still cheap, but Holmes would be my favorite. I think Baldwin's minutes are super secure, like Tim said. I totally agree with that. So he's the chalkiest guy, but he is in my top 3. And then Champagny will be the 3rd, especially now that he's coming off the bench. But I mean, that's not to say, like, I think Bernard's a great play. I think Poole's a great play. Like, they're all great plays. They're so shorthanded that you want exposure to every one of them. I just think limiting it to 3 is a way to make your lineups different today. And I'm not saying that everyone should do that. I do play it generally on the very aggressive side in that manner. If you run optimals, you're going to get as many as 5 here on DK. So limiting it to 4, I think you're taking a step in the right direction. And like I said, I'm still debating whether I'm going to make that from 4 to 3 even.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you walk through a build for us? Even though you said it's similar.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. One guy I do want to talk about is Jock Landale. I didn't mention him on FanDuel. He actually played significant minutes. These teams played like a week ago. So if you're looking for a pivot to get away from Washington, I do think Jock Landale is very interesting at 4,400. Like Jabari Smith is the guy who's going to start, but Landale could play more minutes, especially if Smith isn't able to cover Holmes. I don't anticipate that being a problem, but I do think Landale has something upwards. We could see a few more minutes from Landale. All right, so at point guard, again, I'm going to be right at the field on guys like Van Vliet and Jordan Poole. I'm going to be significantly overweight on Jalen Green, right at the field on Luka. Let's see here. Amen Thompson, like Tim said, is he's cheaper here on DraftKings. I think he's a fantastic play. Devin Vassell, a guy I like in tournaments. Kyrie Irving, I love as a pivot to get away from Luka if you're trying to do that. Let's see here. Anthony Edwards is a guy I definitely want to be well over the field on. Love spending up on him today. A couple of forwards. I mentioned Champagny just coming off the bench now. Hopefully that ownership number comes down. I still want to be way over the field on him. Let's see here. Kyle Anderson, like we talked about Garza being potentially stepping in for if Gobert and Reed miss. Kyle Anderson actually is the guy who played the majority of the 5 after Naz Reid left yesterday. So if injury news breaks your way, Anderson could be interesting. I think Jared Butler is a great way to get different with your Washington exposure. Let's see here. Zion Williamson, a guy I definitely want to be over in tournaments. Patrick Baldwin is super safe, I think, in this spot. Have no issue being at least at the field on him. Ownership looks good on Kispert. I don't know that he'll come in that low, but if he does, I think that's a great tournament play. You're hoping the game stays close in that situation for sure. Mentioned the Denver guys. I like Porter Jr. and Gordon, just as Denver, who could put up a big total today, and those guys could end up getting there. At center, love getting up to Wemby and Jokic. I think they're fantastic pivots off of Luka. Rudy Gobert, I think, is a great play on this slate as long as he's in. If he's out, it's a very easy step down to Naz Reid. If they're both out, you have to get a little bit creative. I think Kyle Anderson would certainly be very interesting if that were the situation. Rashawn Holmes, we talked about, love him today. Nick Claxton is interesting in tournaments. I don't have a ton, but if you're building more than 10 lineups, I wouldn't hate grabbing a share of him.
Okay, very good. Hey, guys, we've got about 10-ish minutes. Naz Reid is out for what it's worth.
Okay. Still questionable on Gobert.
So how,
Yep.
I mean, are we interested in whoever the backup is? I think you mentioned it was Garza, maybe?
Yeah,
Luka Garza.
He's only played like 10 minutes but they've been short before, so I don't think he's playable. If he were to get 18 minutes, he's absolutely playable. I don't trust them to run him out there. Like I said, they used Kyle Anderson at the 5 yesterday quite a bit. I do think it makes Kyle Anderson more interesting.
What
and
does
Rudy
this do to
Gobert,
your
I absolutely love.
what does this do to your Jokic exposure, Keith? You know, like if you knew Gobert was set.
I'm not
essentially
sure.
saying who's going to guard Jokic,
Oh,
if there's no
that is a
Gobert.
fantastic point.
Yeah.
If Gobert gets ruled out, like Jokic should absolutely smash.
Right.
I'm already significantly over the field. I do think maybe I'd try to grab a little bit extra of Jokic in that situation. And like, I'm going to have a couple of roster spots to work with here. So going down to a guy like Kyle Anderson, or even if I have to drop all the way down to like, if Gobert gets ruled out, then I do think Garza is going to be in play here. So going all the way down from Gobert to Garza and then potentially up to Jokic in another spot would be ideal, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
We have 8-9 minutes here until lock. Let's take some QQs first. A personal one. I've got 5-3 left in the util on DK, and I don't know where to go. Ice 5-3 in the util.
5-3 in the util. Yeah, not a great range.
That's a really
there.
bad price point.
Yeah. I mean, PJ Washington is the guy that's going to see the minutes there. I don't love that, but there's not really anything better. Down to Dylan Brooks, also not exciting. Down to Rashawn Holmes. Like then you're talking about like what 900 left over. That's
Okay.
probably too much to leave.
Maybe I'll do the Holmes and figure out another pivot elsewhere then. All right. Let's see what else we got. I am jumping into the Discord here, of course, because that's where the cool kids hang out. And we'll see what we've got and how many poop jokes we've got in the Discord. Not as many. That's is it a horrible idea to play Garza and Edwards? And if Gobert and Naz are in, play one of them and Kyle Anderson instead, FanDuel single entry. So,
well, Naz is already out.
Right. Naz is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have that set up where you know what you're doing, then yes, I think that's okay. I do think Kyle Anderson has a slightly higher ceiling now without Naz Reid.
Gotcha. Okay. DK GPP. Let's see. FanDuel GPP. How many studs and who are they, Ice? How many studs and who are they?
What site was it? Sorry.
It was FanDuel GPP.
FanDuel. I think you're going. I mean, if a stud is over 9, you can get like Luka and Zion. So 2 is going to be my answer there. And if I'm picking my favorites, it's probably those two. If I'm considering ownership, I will go with Wemby and Zion.
Okay. Do you like Amin Thompson and DK Cash, Tim? I think you do.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. FanDuel single entry, Tim. Would you play Van Fleet and Jalen Green together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I would, actually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Okay. FanDuel single entry GPP, Ice, Amin Thompson and Holmes, or Jalen Green and Lively. Note, I have Luka and Wemby in this lineup.
I prefer the first one.
Okay. FanDuel Cash 3v3, Tim, for you, Luka, Van Fleet, and Wendell, or Green, Vassell, and Jokic.
The first one.
FanDuel GPP Ice, Amin and Green pairing at point guard. I think that's a way to get unique along with Washington Scrubs. Does that work for you?
That's definitely, I agree. That will be unique.
Nice. Okay. On FanDuel, since Wiz guys are so cheap, are there any Wiz you won't play together because they negatively correlate? That's a really good question. You said you're kind of mixing and matching all of them. Is there a certain pairing or trio that you're like,
the only pairing that I would not play together is Anthony Gill and Rashawn Holmes, because I think their minutes are directly correlated. Like if I'm talking about Rashawn Holmes playing 30 minutes, that means Anthony Gill is more than likely playing fewer minutes.
Gotcha. Very good. DKGPP, Ice Thompson, Aaron Gordon, or Salomo?
I will go Thompson there.
Okay. Jumping into the YouTube. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit us with a little thumbs up here. McDaniel's in play with Naz Reid out. Single entry. Tim, I'll give that to you.
No,
and
I don't think
McDaniel's
so.
in play? No, not for you.
I don't think so, no.
All right. Nick Gianni says Amin Thompson and Jalen Green, or Van Fleet and Slow-Mo DK Cash. Did we do that one already?
That's a close one, but I think it's the first one.
Okay. What else do we got? Knott and Bernard. This is a single entry tournament, Ice. Knott and Bernard, or Champagny and Baldwin.
So the second one's definitely going to project better. I'm looking at Nas projection right now because, like I said, they're very shorthanded at center. If Kyle Anderson has to play backup 5, meaning they don't trust Garza to do it, then I think that does potentially bring Naw into play. We don't have him projected great right now. Give me the question again one more time. Sorry.
It was Knott and Bernard or Champagny Baldwin. Yeah,
I think it's the second one for sure. Naw is right on the borderline for me, but unless we get if Gobert is out, then it's the first one for sure.
Okay. How many minutes do you think Holmes plays? Does either of you have a strong lean on that?
I think 25.
I think it matters on the game flow. Like if it's a blowout, he's going to play like 22. If it's a close game and Jordan Poole is in there at the end of the game, then I think you could see 30 minutes from Holmes.
Okay, excellent. Davis or Butler in FanDuel Cash, Tim? Who do you prefer?
Davis or Butler is the question. They're both pretty good. I'd go Butler.
Okay. Ice, my favorite question of the day. Pick 2 of these 3 for your build. He didn't actually say what site. It probably matters, but Jokic, Wemby, and Luka. 2 of those 3.
Yeah, that's what everybody's trying to do, I think. Wemby is my favorite today, honestly. I think it's Luka slightly over Jokic, but that ownership gap is very enticing to me. But I'll go Luka and Wemby.
Okay, that is where I landed as well. Enger says FanDuel GPP. Any interest in Dante Exum as a cheap pivot?
Not for me with Luka and Kyrie in.
Yeah. All right. FanDuel tournament question here. Tim, I'll give this to you. Gobert and Dylan Brooks, or Ingram and Jack Landell?
The first one.
We'll go to our guy Black in the chat. FanDuel GPP. Ice, Kispert, or Champagny?
Champagny for me.
Any interest in Mo Wagner potential blowout 3,700 on DK for GPP, obviously.
Not somebody I considered just because I don't like that game environment at all, but I don't think it's crazy. That 3,700 is cheap, and if he plays 18 minutes, even I think he could get there.
Yeah. Okay. Hoosiers Hang Banners say an interest in McCollum as a good GPP pivot off of Poole.
Not for me. Zion's just been handling the ball so much; it's really hurt McCollum's upside here recently. He did just have a really nice game against Portland, but I think I'm out on CJ for a little bit until we see this for a couple of games at least.
Okay. Tim, you got less than 2 minutes here. How many Wizards should you play on FanDuel Cash, and who are they?
4, and it's Poole, Champagny, Baldwin, definitely, and then probably Butler or Davis.
Okay, very good. Sugar Ray says DK Lively or Cole Anthony. Ice Lively or Cole Anthony.
Ugh, I don't love either of those guys at all. I guess it's Cole Anthony.
Okay. Shooter Jenkins says, if Vassell's been playing crazy minutes, can I pair him with Wemby and a DK GPP?
Yes, I think you can do that for sure.
Yeah, I like it. Less than a minute until lock. Make sure you get those lineups going. K-Town's Finest thoughts on DK, Edwards, and Murray with the Washington plays.
Love it.
Yeah, okay. Enfinant says, is Landale a lock in FanDuel Cash?
Who?
Like Jock Landale, I think. Right?
No.
I think that's what he means.
No, he's not.
He's not a lock.
He's okay for tournaments, but not cash.
Maybe he meant Rashawn Holmes. Like Landale's not a cash player.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got to go because I got to poop. I got to go talk to the garage guy again, so we're gonna bounce on out of here. So for Ice and for Tim and for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love it, and we will catch you tomorrow. You have been